911 location of your emergency.
Breaking news out of North Idaho. Moscow police are investigating a homicide on King Road.
Is she breathing?
No.
So 5'10", all black. Could you see what color his eyebrows were or anything like that?
No. I don't remember what his eyes look like either.
Officers discovered the bodies of Ethan Chapin, Xana Kernodle, Maddie Mogen, and Kaylee Goncalves, but no weapon has been located at this time.
Arrested. That's 28-year-old Bryan Christopher Kohberger in custody today.
Mr. Kohberger allegedly stalked one of the victims. That's false.
We do not have evidence that the defendant had direct contact with 1122 or with residents of 1122, but we can put his phone in that area. There are many residences in that area. It's a dense population of mostly college-related occupants.
Everything is alleged.
Well, good evening. So, I know I had said that we were going to go over the second half of Cyray's interview, but I also told you guys that earlier today, the channel made a donation to Connor's FOIA request that he had posted yesterday because you guys brought it to my attention in our live last night. And I said last night I would send something this morning. So I did. And I was hoping, that this would be what he was actually going to be able to get in way of what this was, because we haven't had a lot of internal communications when it comes to these police officers where we can sort of get some sort of internal dialogue from them about what's happening. And it seems like that's exactly what this is. I'm going to show you on the screen. He posted this yesterday. This was one of the ones that was really irritating because they've been doing this right here a super lot lately. They have been giving us an estimate for how much something might cost. And we know that it does fluctuate sometimes. We know that. We've dealt with this long enough to know that it can fluctuate. But it's been getting to the point where it's like almost doubling in price. There's been a lot of really just ridiculous crap coming out of them, you know. But here's the link right here to this post right here. I feel like there's some misconception happening already, which is, I guess, normal. There's some people that are, and he has this in the Google Drive too, by the way. If you go to his channel and then just go to his post, like it should have been what I sent in post. The very top one that he put in 2 hours ago is the Google Drive. Now, normally when things are posted from other channels, I usually like to wait a few days when it's videos so that they get their like own organic traction before we do a reaction to it. That's completely different when it comes to posts. Those really don't do anything. Basically, if you're not a subscriber to a channel, you're really not ever seeing anything in their community post section. So we're going to go ahead and go over this because there's some weird information in this shit, okay? Now, I will say I think the misconception is coming from this right here. Well, they just screwed up. Conveniently, when I didn't even notice that this was here, this tells me right now that I'm right about my assumptions. So there's some people that think that this AT character that's speaking back and forth with Brett Payne in this is Ann Taylor. Now, hold on. I was already under the assumption that it was not, because whoever this person is running plates and VIN numbers for Brett Payne. And that's not typically, you know, something that a death penalty defense attorney does. You know, it's just not normally something that a death penalty defense attorney does. So I'm glad that they made a mistake right here. I'm glad they made a mistake right here because this is not Ann Taylor. This is somebody with the last name Tesdall. Where else have we heard that last name? Now, I know that Chief Fry's wife, Julie, is the clerk for like Latah County. But does Officer Tesdall have a wife or a sister or somebody like that works for the department? Or like, let's see, where are these from? These are actually not from MPD. He paid MPD for them because they came through the portal as far as I can understand. Or he might have actually gotten them from this other county. I guess I need to ask him. Yeah, Whitman County Sheriff's Office. So I don't know if this is FOIA'd from MPD or from Whitman County, but this is exactly like MPD, so I'm going to assume MPD because it's Brett Payne's. But yeah, this is from Whitman County Sheriff's Office, and yeah, people were assuming that this was maybe AT in some of the comments I've already seen, and it definitely isn't. I didn't realize the Tesdall name though until I started talking about it. Jacob Tesdall is Rosie's partner. I don't know. I think this is a female. No. This is AT. Ashley. Is that a wife? Sister? Anybody know the relationship between an Ashley Tesdall? Look, I talk about food and stuff, and it makes sushis and all kind of shit on my second channel. You know, I'm just saying. Wife. Okay. So I wasn't aware that Officer Tesdall's wife worked in this, like in these departments. Okay, so let me ask another question. Was there something that happened besides this at this time? There's something in here, like right here, where she says, he asks if she's okay. And she says, keeping myself busy, blank reached out, which was kind of her. It's an A name. I don't know who it could be. Maybe Amber in the office. I am getting off early to meet with the wives today. So I don't know if maybe this was like the wives of the officers were like dealing with all the overtime and stuff, maybe, or trying to like get together and figure out like what they could do to make things easier. Maybe it's like a group thing with the police officers' wives. I know a lot of departments have it where like the spouses get together and like do things. So maybe that's what this is. But okay, we're going to go ahead and read these. There's several different conversations here. And you're going to see the progression because there's going to be several different vehicles that he asks for her to run, different plates, different years of birth we're going to see. You're also going to see the progression all the way down to 12/19, 12/20, where we finally see Brett Payne trying to contact someone over at Pullman WSU on on 12/20. And there's a couple of things on the 19th too that I was expecting to see, like BK's initials in some of the stuff, and I did not. So let's go ahead and take a look. I have tried to categorize these as best as I could. I went through first and highlighted everywhere where Brett Payne sent a message. Then I went in and with pink did the highlights at the top line for where I think it's a separation in a new conversation, because there's nothing else besides the timestamps to separate it. So I didn't get to finish the whole thing. I'll finish it as as we're going through. But there's some interesting information in here. Okay. It starts on 11/14/22. Brett Payne sends a message to someone with the initials MA. Can you run an RNQ on initials LDS, year of birth 1962, any vehicles registered to him? Anybody have any idea who LDS, we know what LDS is, but does anybody have any idea who the initials LDS might be that had a year of birth of 1962? Definitely not a college student, but it doesn't look familiar to me. So then the response from MA is, got it here at my desk. And I guess I forgot to, I guess I didn't see that this was actually something else here, because it's part of a conversation that goes into the next day. So I guess I initially didn't realize that. Okay. So whoever this LDS person is that's being asked about by Brett Payne on the 14th, whoever MA is, says, got it here at my desk. So then message from AT, which seems to be A Tesdall, asks Brett Payne, you working right? MG is on the phone for you. Now, I don't know who MG is. I don't know that initial. I don't know anybody in the Goncalves family that has the initial M as their first name that I can think of off the top of my head, to where it could have been somebody in that family. So I don't know who this is. Brett Payne says yes. And then he says, who is MG? And AT says, I'm gonna have to say Tesdall. Like, I don't really have a choice, because whoever hears me say AT that didn't hear me say what I just said is gonna think that it's freaking Ann Taylor. So I'm gonna have to say Tesdall. A Tesdall. Okay. A Tesdall. I said that last night. She has a video from her Ring camera to turn in. She reported a burglary a week or so ago, something along the lines of that. So I guess somebody who reported a burglary before thinks that maybe the person involved in the burglary might have something to do with this situation. So she said, hey, you might want to come get my Ring camera. And Brett Payne says, gotcha. Can you message Sturk? He's on patrol today. And Tesdall says, will do. So I'm going to, maybe there's a report for this. Look, there's another incident that you guys need to be prepared for, because a lot of people can't take it when an animal is injured. So if you had a negative reaction to listening to what happened to Buddy the dog, you're going to need to brace yourself later on down the timeline, because something else happened. And some of you might know this. I didn't know this. Something else happened to an animal, to a dog in Pullman after the murders took place, and they discussed it in this right here. See, that's what I put the question mark for. Like, I wanted to see if there was a report for this, because I don't know off the top of my head. It doesn't exist. I'm sure you checked, right? I'm sure you did. Yeah, there's a lot of reports that they claim are in there that aren't. I mean, even Brett Payne, in one of his reports, said that Sergeant Gilbertson with ISP was going to be writing his report about the situation with the interview in Pennsylvania with Kohberger, where he also talks about the pocket recorder and the transcript from the pocket recorder. But then whenever I tried to get the report from ISP, Gilbertson never wrote a report. But yeah, just be careful, because there's a dog situation that happens down the line, which I'm going to try to get the information for. I decided already I was going to try to see. I'm going to try to look at some stuff, because that's interesting. That's really interesting. They got 2 dog incidents very close together. That's probably like important if you know. So then, this is where A Tesdall says, gotcha. Can you message Sturk? He's on patrol today. And then, no, that's what Brett Payne asked her, and she says, will do. And then out of nowhere, there's just this random Dustin Blaker to Brett Payne, what's the word? And I guess at that point, there's a phone conversation, because there's nothing else from there. Then the next one on 11/15, so same day as the Dustin Blaker one, and it says, from MS to Brett Payne, hey, how long have you been an officer? And it's another one of those weird ones where you don't get an answer. So I don't know if Brett Payne just ignored this question. I don't know if he called him, if it's an email, if it's a different platform that they spoke on. I also don't know who the hell MS is. No idea who MS is. No clue. Okay. And when I see it getting closer to the bottom of the page before we start talking about it, I'll remind you guys again that the dog thing is coming. So then on 11/17, Brett sends a message to W. No idea who this is. Can you give me a D&Q on this name/number, on this name number? And then Brett Payne says to W, please keep this on the down low. That's interesting. And then he says, I need all vehicles registered to him. Wonder who this is about. So then we have a break again, and it's a different conversation. I don't know who KS is. On 11/17, a message was sent out to, a lot of different people. the names look jumbled up, which is really freaking weird. You can tell this is Lanier Barrett, Dollinger, Morris, Macy, Smith, Lawrence. I don't know, Rosinski. I don't know what's going on, why it's all jumbled up like that, but it's like that for like all of the like group messages, I guess. And it says, was anyone just at blank? Now, this is not the address to the house, obviously, or it wouldn't be redacted. So I don't know where this is. And then the answer from Corbin Smith says, not us. And then the response is from Joshua Thiessen, ISP may have been there looking for video. And then I think this is the same conversation. No, this is like 25 minutes later. Does anybody remember the date of the Cowboys? MS is Michael Sotolongo. Oh, damn. Okay. Does anybody know the date? Was it December or was it like really close to the crime? Like, could it have been around 11/17? Because I wonder if this is the Cowboy date. I wonder if this is them asking like, who the frick was over there? And the response is that it might be ISP over there looking for video. I can't remember the date of that off the top of my head, but somebody in the chat might. See, I thought it was December. That's why I figured it was maybe too early. Yeah, because this is, okay, yeah, that's what I thought. So it's not them. So they don't know who was over here, wherever this is. They're just assuming that it might be the Idaho State Police. Well, that's great that they don't actually know for sure. So it was later on. Okay, in December. Okay, so it had nothing to do with that. So just another instance of something happening that nobody has any freaking clue about. That's just great. Okay, so like 25 minutes later, this WB person says to Brett Payne, sorry, I was in a meeting and I'm not dispatching and in my office where I can't run anything. I guess they meant not in my office since they said they weren't dispatching. Then on 11/17, in the 1600th hour, KS sends out another one that says there's hot KFC from the Hermiston Police Department in the break room. We do know that a lot of police departments were sending a lot of stuff over to like help the guys out. So we have 11/19. Brett Payne sends a message to A. Tesdall. Hey, first name here. Can you do me a quick favor? She says, sure can. Then Brett Payne asks her, can you tell me whose phone number made the initial 911 call for the 220-9903 M09903 case? That's this case. Ashley Tesdall says to Brett Payne, for whatever reason, I cannot bring the case number up. Stand by. So instantly, it's just like, what? Okay. It says, oh, wow, look at this shit. I didn't even see this before. Ashley Tesdall then responds to Brett Payne. It literally skips 9903. I can access 9902 and 9904. So the case was just not there. The case was just not there. Just skip right over it. Yeah. Because look what happened with I always bring up item 40. I don't give a shit. Item 40 was the damn red spot in the kitchen that Chris Holland is a dumb shit for, who again has not responded to me telling him that he got it wrong. And we have the numbering issues, which definitely needs to involve a bigger forensic freaking audit on that situation. But in the little insert in Sutton's report where she's describing the numbers that Gamut said were like a problems, it goes from 39 to 41 and skips 40. And I'm like, yeah, 40 should have been in there. It literally goes from 39 to 41. They got all the problems, bro. See, I saw something about report number 42, but I don't even know where report 42 like came from. Do we know what report it said anything about report 42 even being like mentioned in? Because I know so far we've taken all of the reports that have been put out and put them in the Google Drive, and I don't even think that are we even in the 30s? I think we might be like the beginning 30s. I'm gonna have to go see like what she's saying about where that whole report 31 thing came from, because 42 thing came from, because I didn't even think we had them that high yet. Let me see. Like, are y'all talking about ISP report 42? Oh, MPD number 42. Yeah, okay, yeah. That's, I guess I need to ask for y'all to clarify that. Is it ISP forensic lab report number 42, or is it MPD report number 42 from the police department? Forensic lab 42. Well, then if we're up that high, then maybe I missed something, because I wasn't aware that we had gone up that high in the numbers. Let me look. Forensics only. Oh, no, you're right. It is missing. Damn, we have all the way up to 44 reports. I guess I didn't realize that. Yeah. I mean, it looked, yeah, 38, 39, 40, 41, and then it goes 43 and 44. So yeah, they're right. Number 42 is missing. I wonder what the hell is on number 42. Huh. So what's number 41? Number 41 is about latent prints L5 and L6. But we also have the unredacted report that shows us that 137 is Bethany's, 2 fingerprint cards, and then there's 3 other fingerprint cards. Bethany Funk was excluded from L5 and L6. Now, one of these is the slider, and I can't remember what the freaking other one is. One of them is the slider, and one of them is another part, another thing. I can't remember what it was. So then what's 43? So then it jumps to Jack Jacor getting his fingerprints taken all the way in practically June, because it's May 29th. Which, again, when we got the court filings for that, and Taylor had the court filing in January of 2025 saying that they still needed Jack Jacor's exemplars, his prints. And they took 5 months to get him in there. That's crazy. So I'm going to assume, based off of context clues, that since number 40 is about L5 and L6, since number 41 is also about L5 and L6, and number 44 and 43 are about those prints, then number 42 is about those prints. L5 and L6 prints. So I don't know, again, I don't know, what is the damn other one? You know what? I think I know where I can see where this is at. Let's see. Let's see. Well, this only works if whatever it was unredacted. Yeah, there's still a lot of this I have on here. I need to replace it with the unredacted information. Oh, look, I even wrote it in here. Holy shit. Oh, I'm not even showing it. Hold on, look. So, okay, so if you go to the forensic reports, okay, and you click on 4383 in the Google Share Drive, and you click on the index that I actually created, if you go all the way down to, what page is this? I can't even see what page number this is. What the frick page number is this? 45. On page 45, I actually put in here that report number 42 is missing from public release. That's insane. When did I write this? A long ass time ago. Whenever I first told you guys this folder was in here. I guess I just completely forgot. Well, I'm glad that Logan saw that too, because then that's a good reminder. Yeah, but it's got to be about a print. I'm trying to think. Like, I know that I have seen what L4 and L5 actually are. Where the hell is that? I know that I have this written down somewhere. Let me see. Maybe not. I thought I had information on this damn thing. Hold on, let me skim through. No. I know I've seen the damn difference between what L4 and L5 is somewhere. Maybe not. I don't know. But I know one is the slider. Yeah, there's one. Yeah, but I can't remember which one is which is the problem. Okay, L5 is the slider bloody print. Okay. So then L4 is the one from the window. L4 is the one in the window then. Okay. I knew that I'd seen it somewhere. I knew somebody was going to remember. But see, the window stuff like has nothing at all to do with anything as far as I'm understanding. So it's just, yeah, just more. Okay. So anyway, we go back to seeing again that just like everything else, there's a problem here. Almost a week later on 11/19, suddenly the case number cannot be accessed. And when they try to find it, it just skips right over it. Of course. So then A. Tesdall tells Brett Payne, I can walk you through to finding it on the law screen. And he says, no worries. Thanks for trying. And then she says to him, if you click on involvements in the corner and go down to CA, the initial call, it should be in the contact field. And he says to her, yeah, it's in there, but I can't find a name. Brett Payne then says to her something that's completely redacted. I guess, we'll see, I don't really quite understand. I guess it's probably Bethany's name. I don't know. They haven't been redacting Bethany and Dylan's names in some of the stuff that we've gotten here recently, but then in some of the other stuff, they are redacting their names because they can't stay consistent to save their own freaking lives. Oh, wait, no, it says it's a number. Okay, so I just talked all that shit for no reason. Ha! Okay, so this is a number. I'm going to assume it's probably Bethany's. I don't know. But then he says to her, can you search the number? And A. Tesdall tells Brett Payne, I guess this should say do. I can do some digging. Brett Payne says, thank you. Also, you doing all right? And she says to Brett Payne, keeping myself busy. Somebody with the name A reached out, which was kind of her. I am getting off early to meet with the wives today. Like I said, I guess it's something that the police wives all get together and maybe they were going to do something as a group together because it's been like a stressful week and their husbands have been stressed out and everything else. So it sounds like something like that. So then Brett Payne says to Tesdall, great. If you guys need anything, please let us know. We're in it together. And she says, thank you. And then she says about, 20 minutes later, I'm pretty sure the caller this should be Bethany's name. I think 113 put that in the report. No record in Spillman besides that one phone call. Area code is blank. Fast People Search says it comes back to a SC out of somewhere. SC out of somewhere. And this was supposed to have been Bethany's phone. Well, this first name is way too long to be Stacy, and this last name is way too long to be Chapin. So I wonder who that is. So then Brett Payne says, saw that. Thank you. And Tesdall says, sorry, I couldn't help further. Now, it goes from like 11:43 and 59 seconds to 11:44 and 39 and 33 seconds. And then he just says, that's great to the Ashley girl, the Ashley Tesdall girl. So I think he's responding to the wives thing, but it's like out of order, I guess, like conversationally out of order. So then he tells Tesdall, a gal from the FBI is going to call you here soon with a request for some registrations. So an FBI person is going to be calling Tesdall to run some registration numbers, I guess, because the feds can't run their own registration numbers. I don't know. It's kind of strange. Okay. So then Ashley Tesdall says to Brett Payne, use your number. Are they going to request me? And then she says, also attach them to 09903. And Brett Payne says, well, actually, it's almost like an hour, close to an hour. And then Brett Payne says to someone named S. So, okay, then there's no response. There's no response to this that we can see right here. It skips down to a conversation with someone else. Brett Payne says to S, can you give me an RNQ on any vehicles registered to somebody with the initials KD? Then SW says to Payne for Idaho, and Brett Payne responds, and Washington, please. And then Brett Payne says, do you want a list? I mean, the person asks Brett Payne, do you want a list or everything ran? And Brett Payne responds, everything, please. And they said, got it. Then they stated he has nothing registered to him in Washington, and his record through Washington shows a blank address. I also looked in his involvements in previous calls that contained his criminal history and saw no alias names to search. So whoever this KD person is, I don't know if it could be Kai Davis. It seems a little tiny to be Kai Davis, but I could be wrong, and they could be over-exaggerating the spots. I'm not really quite sure. I don't know. So then Brett Payne responds with copy, thanks, and then whatever the first name is. So then on 11/19, so it's the same conversation then. Okay, copy, thanks, insert person's name here. Person says to Brett Payne, of course, then says about an hour, well, 6:55, hour and 15-ish, give or take, later. On 11/19, SW asks Brett Payne, is the FBI roaming around Paradise Drive area? Okay. But there's like not really a response, which is weird. All of a sudden, SW just says to Brett Payne, I found you, thanks. And he says, yep. So this conversation is just kind of strange, you know? So at 11:21, we have MA sending out a message to everyone. Is anyone driving car 2? Shane Gunderson says me. And then I guess that's it. No. Okay. So then it says, or I guess that would be IS, Idaho State, has a new MDT they want to swap. D is on his way here. What is an MDT? MDT law enforcement tools. A mobile data terminal, computerized device in police vehicles that allows officers to access databases, communicate with dispatch, and manage records efficiently. So Idaho State Police wants to switch out the one that's there? Switch out the one that they already have? And Gunnarsson just says, okay. So then we go down here to Brett Payne, back to Ashley Tesdall, and he says, hey, can you tell me if there are any vehicles registered to a MD out of Washington? So now we have these initials. She says, yeah, stand by. And then she says, I can't find anything, and that is the correct spelling with a question mark. And he says, oops. And then she responds, I found a MWD, full initials, MWD. And Brett Payne, I guess, responds with that. I don't know who these initials could be for. And then there's more conversation about whoever this person is that we can't read. And it's all the same date, so 11/21, and it goes in the 17th hour. The next one that they allow us to see is from Ashley, same conversation to Brett Payne. And it says, I checked the Camry's plate through our system from a year ago to today, and it hasn't been ran. So whoever this person is had a Toyota Camry that they were looking at. I think I remember reading something in a report about there being a Toyota Camry that they were looking at. Oh, that does sound a little bit familiar. I guess maybe like a CAD. That's pretty much how it seemed in the description. But you'd think that Idaho State Police and MPD couldn't switch out their systems because they have their own, stuff, I guess. I don't know. But yeah, whoever this person with the MWD initials or whatever had a Toyota Camry that they had seen. And so Brett Payne says, copy that. And she says, let me know if you need anything else. And Brett Payne says, will do. And I don't know. I mean, I get that I don't know. This is where I knew for sure before we saw the Tesdall thing. This was definitely not Ann Taylor running plates. This was not Ann Taylor running plates. I really enjoy helping. It makes me feel like I'm contributing. And then there's nothing else in that conversation. And then Brett Payne asks somebody with the initials BM, I guess, from down here, can you run blank ID and send me the return, please? And BM says, yes, sir, sent. And then on 11/22, Brett Payne to Ashley Tesdall says, hey, can I get any vehicles registered to an SS, year of birth 2001, out of Idaho? I guess they found a middle name. And then she says, sent to your MDC. I found 3 VINs under his name. And then she says, the blank is in the locals. The blank is in the locals. I don't know what that can maybe mean. Right? Like, it's kind of weird, especially since, especially like there's right here, this part of the screen. It's just kind of odd. I don't know. Maybe I don't know. Okay. So then Brett Payne says, thanks. And she says, yup. And 30 minutes later, she says to Brett Payne, did you mean to put yourself on the screen? And he says, nope. And she says, LOL, okay, took you off. And he says, thank you. And then about 50 minutes later, he says, can you run AW 1982? This can't be Ava Woods. This has got to probably be some dude, I guess. But 1982, that's 6 years older than me. So that person would be like in their early 40s. It would be almost 40, I guess, at the time that this took place. Or it depends on the year, I guess. So 39 to 40 years old. Looking for current address. And then Tesdall says to Brett Payne, his ID return says something right here. And suspended. So I'm guessing it's a driver's license and it's suspended for whoever that person was. And then he says to her, can you check any vehicles registered to him? She says, all sent to DMC, Silverado and S10 in the locals. So I guess that means like it's in the county register, or like it's the county tax register for the registration for the vehicle. So this person has an S10 and a Silverado, both pickup trucks. And he says, perfect, thank you. And she says, no problem. Then Brett Payne says to her 2.5 hours later or so, can you run blank and send me the return? State, Oregon. Now, I don't know if this is the date of the white car from Oregon being found out or not. I'm not good with those dates off the top of my head. You guys can discuss it in the chat if that was the date that we knew about the Oregon car or not. I thought that we found out, this is how my brain remembers it. We found out about them looking for a white car, about the white car in Oregon, and the Banfield footage with the undercover cop car that looks very similar, or probably is the same car. And all of that came out within like 24 to 36 hours of themselves all together at the same time. And it was very freaking confusing. That's how I remember. So if the Oregon car came up before that, please let me know if I'm remembering incorrectly. This also might be a different vehicle from Oregon. I don't know. But then she says to Brett Payne, I'm not getting a return. And he says, copy, thanks. And then she also responds with, I also did an H1 for the region and got nothing. And he said, interesting, thanks. Then she says to him, sorry, I blew up your MDC, but I ran the plate nationally, and those are all the returns I got. So the plate was ran in a national database, and something actually popped up, I guess. And then it says, but the plate comes back in locals to a COR. So they looked in the local systems and didn't see anything. Looked in the federal systems and then found the plate comes back to the local area, registered to somebody with the initials. Actually, that could be an N. And it could be cut off by the redactions. I'm pretty sure this is a C because the ends of it are starting to tail instead of like look like a stick, like it could be a D that they cut off. But this definitely could be an R or an N. I'm not really quite sure here. So then Brett Payne says to her something that we can't read even a little bit of. And then, can you run that VIN in Washington? So this must be a VIN number. And he said, also ID. She says, will do. And he says, can you check ID right here? She says, I have to run the B clan first, then I will. LOL. What does that mean? I have to run the B clan first, then I will. LOL. He says, haha, deal. So just barely any minutes later, she then says, no return on blank plate, the rest sent to MDC. So then 7 minutes later, she says to Brett Payne, are you looking for the updated return on that Hyundai Elantra with the blank plate? I can run its VIN. I got its return through Oregon. So this is the Hyundai Elantra Oregon car. Okay, so then how the hell do we have one on 11/22 that they're talking about? I mean, maybe that's just when the public found out about the Oregon car, but it sure seems like they're talking about it here on the 22nd. This must be the 22nd. Like, it's weird that it's on the 22nd. Okay, so obviously someone is in here that's causing issues one more time. So then share your knowledge or shut up. Like, it seems like people are begging you. Hey, Layla. It seems like people are begging you to share what you're talking about. And instead you're choosing not to and just being a complete dickhead. Is that the only thing that you came in here to do? Like, my God. Don't take my word for it. Just look it up. Tell me I'm wrong. You're not even talking about what the hell you're talking about. Like, I saw your name already ranting and raving in here for a little while, and I always try to give people, like, the benefit of the doubt, but then you come in here, like, just ignorant. Like, I always give you idiots, like, a chance. Okay, well, fuck off. Now I'm going to get rid of you. Since you want to be a dumb shit, the people are fucking asking you, you ignorant ass clown. That means they're willing to listen. And if your damn response is going to be, you're not going to listen anyway, fuck the fuck off. Unsub, get the fuck away from our channel. Bye. Don't come back with another username either, because I'm going to instantly block you. People were begging you to spread what you wanted to spread and speak. So don't say, you won't listen anyway. They were giving you a damn platform, you idiot. Ugh. I can't deal with stupid. I really can't. I'm going to start being the biggest fucking bitch to people. I don't give a shit. I don't give a shit. Ugh. Ignorant. Y'all were literally asking her over and over. Like, how stupid. Rude as fuck. Now back to what we were doing, goddammit. Okay. December 17th is when it was first mentioned. Who knows that? See, that's the thing. Who knows when they initially actually came across it? Yeah. Who knows? Who knows? I mean, if people want to present their information, damn, present it. But don't come in here being a dickhead because people are asking you to explain yourself. That's the dumbest, ignorant, trollish bullshit on the damn planet. Person's probably older than everybody in this chat combined, acting like a damn child. Anyway, so yeah, this is on the 22nd when they're looking at a Hyundai Elantra, very specifically Hyundai Elantra in Oregon. So that's super interesting. Okay. But at the time right here, Brett Payne says, I'm good for the moment. Thanks. So I don't know if he knew something else or not. And of course, she sends back, smile, smiley face. So 2 days later, he sends a message over to SW and says, can you run blank through ID and send me the return? And they say, of course. He says, thank you. Okay, back up. All right, trigger. Wait, let me make sure. Yeah. Trigger warning. The dog situation is about to enter the room. The dog situation is about to enter the room. And I'll let you know now, I'm going to end up getting this report and we're going to end up talking about it because of the Buddy the Dog thing. So I'm totally going to be fine if half of you are not here. Okay? Are y'all ready? I think I've given y'all enough time. Okay. Okay, let's talk about it. On 11/24/2022, Brett Payne sends a message over to SW and says, was there a stabbing in Pullman this morning? SW then says, not that night shift passed on. I will double check. Brett Payne says, okay, thank you. Okay, thanks. SW then responds to Brett Payne. Yesterday morning, there was a dog that had stab wounds. And there's the case number right here. P22 P10580. I'm going to cross-reference that to something here in just a second. Then SW tells Payne, I asked the Pullman officers about a stabbing or cases involving a knife that night shift would have passed on to them. And this was the only case they were aware of. It was reported at 8:51 yesterday morning. So 8:51 on 11/23/22, 10 days after the stabbings. I have Pullman, Washington County Sheriff's Office, and WSU PD since 7 this morning. I read the report, and this was a fight between two dogs. When the attacking dog would not release the victim dog, the victim owner, okay, maybe I don't have to get the report. It seems like it's all right here. The victim owner took out a knife and stabbed the dog several times until the dog did release and passed away. All parties have been contacted and identified. And he said, copy, thanks. And that seems to be the end of that conversation. So it seems like a dog attacked another dog. And the owner of the dog that was being attacked, the most aggressive, I guess, took out a weapon, a knife, and stabbed the dog that was attacking his dog. Okay. So I don't need to get the report. That seems like they knew exactly what's going on. So it's not like Buddy the Dog whatsoever. So there's no reason to get the report. Okay. Alrighty. That part's done. So now we get on to 11/25/22, and somebody with the initials MN sends out a message that says, are any of you familiar with a threatening note case involving an LM? I wonder who this is. Threatening note case. I don't know the date of when the sorority got the letter. I wonder, I need to go back and see. That's another reason why I'm glad we're going back through the old reports one at a time, because I need to get all those dates written down correctly. I've tried so many times, but I've already let my timeline that I already started a long time ago get so far behind. I feel like it'd be more beneficial for me to just start it all completely over, honestly. Anyway, so MN then sends out, I have someone on the phone who wants to talk to an officer about him. So I guess LM is a male. And then Eric Warner responds and says, no, I guess it's supposed to be not. Off the top, I'll have to look it up. Then MN says, I have tried. Apparently it was at Super 8 or Sherry's, but I can't find anything yet. Is this like a restaurant, a diner or something? West Pullman Nom Nom. Dude from out of town, Minnesota, and a bit 220 about the murders. What does that mean? What does this freaking mean? I need this report, whatever the hell this is. What is this? West Pullman Nom Nom. That's the gas station. Dude from out of town, Minnesota. So somebody from Minnesota out of town, and a bit 220 about the murders. What does that mean? What does that mean? So I guess I'm going to see if I can find a report for this situation right here. MN then says, can I transfer EL to you? He has more information. So the person's name that they're looking at is LM. Something about out of town, Minnesota, at the Super 8 or the Sherry's restaurant. Something about the murders. And this person with the initials EL is wanting to talk and give more information. So I guess they misunderstood. Okay, this whole conversation is crackadoodle, okay? So MN is telling Eric, can I transfer EL to you? He has more information, okay? Eric responds back with, they would have to request a report through records if they want info. Sure. I guess maybe he was typing that already and just instantly thought the person was trying to request information. Well, I know I'm going to be requesting information because this shit is weird. Okay. And then says, sure, thank you. Sure to transfer. Thank you, thank you. And then that's the end of that conversation. Brett Payne to Ashley Tesdall. Good morning. Can you run me a DNQ for a JP ending date of birth 92? I don't know why they closed off, unless it's like just 92 on it, because there ain't no 1892 or 2092. We know what it says. And then he says, Idaho. She says, morning, will do. He says, thanks. Can you do a RNQ as well? Will do. What is the freaking difference? Okay. RNQ, which is, I know it's a query, but RNQ versus DNQ. Law enforcement. Okay. I don't know if that's right. It says RNQ stands for record not qualified. That's definitely not the situation. Okay, so DNQ is driver's license query. So I'm going to assume RNQ is registration something query. Yeah, but I don't know what the registration's national query. No, that don't sound right. Bit 220 refers to an officer-involved shooting, an officer calling out for an all-out emergency backup or severe assault, depending on the department's specific codes. And then this one says 220 for Moscow, Idaho specifically is burglary. I have no idea. I'm going to end up going through all this again separately, like by myself, so that I can figure out what exactly it is that I want to focus more on. 2020, Idaho's breaking and entering. 2020 is also mostly called for assault with a 10-minute felony. Huh. Are those already reports in the Moscow police releases? Hold on, that reminds me of something I wanted to check. Because we know on the narrative, not this last Moscow Monday, but the first one, on the narrative, there's these 4 cases that are involved. And one of them says 21P, and I tried to get it. Yeah, it says 21-P08063, and it became part of the inventory list on 6/21/23. Now, when I called Amber today, I think it was, and asked why I was being told in my FOIA that 21P08063 didn't exist. And she said it's because she thinks it's a Pullman record. But this is why I wanted to check the numbers to see if any of these are on here too, because that doesn't look like it is. So this is 077930090610155. That's the one that I think I wanted to check earlier. So these are different. Okay, let me take a screenshot of these. Okay. Okay. So then where's the other one I said I wanted to check? I think it was like way further up. No, that's our regular case number. Where the hell is that one I said I wanted to check? Oh my God. I know damn well. Am I tripping? I know we saw. Okay, right here. 22-P10580. Okay, so that's the dog case. Okay, so that's not the same thing then. Because I'm pretty sure that this one right here, this 21-P08063, is the Pullman burglary knife incident where we found out that the girl that went to school with Kohberger called and lied to the police and said that there was some sort of event for future TAs to come to in like August of 2021 when that break-in little situation happened. There's like reports about how they had to contact the school and try to figure it out. And the school was like, no, there was no event. Like Kohberger wasn't here. We didn't even know who he was at that point in time. Like, no, not at all. I'm assuming that it's that one. I know that there's the case number and stuff already out there, so I'm going to have to just go and check it myself. But I'm assuming that that's what it is. I just wanted to make sure it wasn't that dog one, since it was a Pullman event. Okay, let's see. Where were we? Okay. Okay, so yeah, this person, this JP with 1992, Idaho, morning, will do. Thanks. Can you do an R and Q as well? Will do. I'm not getting anything. I'll try DAPS. Brett Payne says, interesting, thanks. Ashley Tesdall, which this is where they made the slip up, which I honestly, on everything, did not even notice this. It just happened to be the damn page. I was like, interesting as shit, okay? So then Tesdall says, nothing in DAP is interesting indeed. Brett Payne says, very, thanks. She says, no problem. Then about an hour later, a little over an hour later, Brett Payne then says, can you run this VIN number through Washington and Idaho? Ashley then says, I think Idaho is currently down, but sent you a Washington return. He says, got it. Perfect. Thanks. She sends a smiley face. So, Let's see. I don't know, a little less than 2 hours later, he then says to her, can you run a RNQ for initials B something S with year of birth 88, so my age, check Idaho and Washington. This is the response that she sends back. They've redacted the whole thing, but then they say that what they're looking for is a stratus that belongs to that person. And then her response is, nothing through Idaho, but ILETS has been weird today. So I guess the system still wasn't working. He says, awesome, and then says, can you run Washington? And then whatever that is. And she says, white Ford Explorer to a JG. And he says, thanks. Then about 20-ish minutes later, can we run vehicles by their registered address? And Ashley says, I believe so. So Brett Payne then gives her an address right here to run. And I don't see an answer to that right here, because then we are getting a group message sent out by an RW. And it says CV, whoever that is, no clue, called in and wanted to let you know that blank will have security guards until 6. They will be there for at least the next week, maybe 2. He would like a call at blank to discuss if he needs to blank shift every night in case people call them in as suspicious. Thank you. Who the frick is CV? And then Corbin Smith, of all people, responds, perfect, thank you. M102 sent out an email to the department, and we will have the night shift watch commander contact him. Now, the thing about 11/27 is that is the email date on Brett Payne sending out the internal, do not talk about this on dispatch, do not talk about this on the radio bolo for a white vehicle. This is when Pullman Police Department got that bolo, but it was a different year range than the Bryan Kohberger car that they see 2 days later, which is why, unlike what Cyray wants everyone to believe with this dumb shit, that tip was never sent in because it did not match the criteria. Chief Jenkins has come out here and said that himself. Sent to DMC, has 2 vehicles registered to whatever this says. Then AH sends out a group message just to let everyone know. C called and said that car 7 is ready to be picked up from the shop. Roger Lanier says thanks. That was on December the 2nd. Now on December 4th, it comes down. And Brett Payne asks Ashley Tesdall, hey, random question. Do you have a record of what our NCICORI is here? NCICORI, National Center of something. Originating agency identifier. Okay, so working the hospital systems, we have to use like a tax identification number, which is basically like an EIN or a social security number, but for the hospital, when we send out claims and different things like that, along with like the NPI, which is like a national provider identifier. So I guess this is pretty much the same thing. NCICORI is basically what is our agency's government ID number, is how I'm pretty sure that is. And she says yes, and then gives him the answer for which one Moscow PD is. And he says, whew. He says, thank you. You guys doing okay over there? She says, yeah, things are good. Still crazy callers and entitled people from all around the country and Canada. So this must be people are calling Jacob Tesdall and his wife, probably contacting them on their cell phones, doxing their information somehow, bothering the shit out of them. And yeah, I mean, that's not shocking literally at all. Then Brett Payne says, not surprised. This has brought out lots of interesting folks. Tell W and C I said hi. I'm going to assume that that's probably Jacob and Ashley Tesdall's kids, maybe. And she responds with, they said hi. And he says, LOL. And then responds, can you run blank for me, Idaho? And she says, we missed you guys at the Christmas party. sent to DMC white 2014 Elantra to an E and a CG. So again, we have an Elantra being looked at that has no relation whatsoever to Kohberger. This is a G last name. A G last name. Then Brett Payne says, dang, we wanted to come and a person with an A. I guess maybe this is Brett Payne's partner. Because this is the second time they've kind of like redacted the name in a conversation. And I'm going to assume it's a girlfriend. I don't know if he's straight or gay. So that's why I said partner. I don't know. It ain't my business. I don't know what the hell he does. But I'm going to assume this is whoever Brett Payne is in a relationship with. Because this is the second, like, the context clues. A's folks came down for dinner and we went to the tree lighting thing in Troy. And then he says, thanks. And she says, no problem. And then he says, okay, that's on the 4th. And then on December the 6th, Brett Payne says to Ashley, will you run blank? And then I'm guessing this says ID, but they redacted it like shit. And then she says, white Chevy Cruze to a KL and MS and MM sent to DMC. I'm guessing this is them looking up Maddie's car. Because KL is most likely Karen Laramie. And MM would be Maddie Mogen. So all the way on 2/6/22, Brett Payne is looking up Maddie's car. Why in the actual shit would you have taken that long to do that? Why would you have taken that long to do that? That's wild. So then Brett Payne then says, got it, thanks. And then he says, can you, oh, this is a different person. So the conversation with Ashley ends here. And then to someone with the initial C, it says, can you email all the calls for 1122 King Road before the 13th of November, email to blank at the FBI. Of course, the freaking FBI. And CM says, I can. How far back do you want me to go? Brett Payne says, last 2 years. CM says, sounds good. I'll start working on it. Brett Payne says, thanks so much. CM says, not a problem. Then Brett Payne to CM again says, good morning. Can you send me the M cases? 22 M07427 and 7422. Could these possibly be two of the maybe loud noise complaint calls? I know that people have gotten the reports for those, but I don't know the case numbers for those off the top of my head to know if these case numbers match any of the noise complaints. So if anybody knows, let me know. If not, then I'll find out. I'll find out later, but I don't know. He did say over the last 2 years, and this is also after running Maddie's car information. So I'm wondering if they're running stuff based off of something to do with Maddie right here then. This far down on the 6th of December. Because Maddie's the only one that lived there for 2 years. Last 2 years. I guess I'm going to do the same thing, F. Because the only thing that I did was ask them for the like 6 months previous to the crimes. And that's when I was told that the 3 noise complaints that were already on body cam that we saw were the only ones that there were. So I guess I'm going to go back in and I'm going to ask for a list. I'm going to ask for this exact thing and see if they give me these case numbers before I then ask specifically for information on these case numbers. I guess that's how I can do that. Let's see. So then Brett Payne says, good morning, LOL, I sure can, and you're not dumb. Oh, wait, hold on. Let me finish this whole thing up here. Brett Payne says to CM, good morning. Can you send M cases 22 M07427 and 7422 when you have a chance? I tried, but I'm dumb and can't figure it out. CM says, good morning, LOL, I sure can, and you're not dumb. And then this E person says to Brett Payne, are you in Teton County? Who's this person? There's no answer to whatever this is. That's weird. So then Brett Payne, later on in the same day, about an hour and a half later, 2.5 hours later, says to Ashley Tesdell, Can you run an RNQ for any vehicles associated with initials KJ, year of birth 60, and LJ, year of birth 67, out of Washington? The male has 8 vehicles registered underneath him. And then she says, want me to just run all of them and then send them to your MDC? The female has 0. And he says, that'll work. They're all sent to you. And then Brett Payne says, I hit the wrong button. I'm not in service. LOL. And then she says, LOL again. And then he says, about an hour later, can you run blank Idaho? And then he says, also, can you do a D&Q on initials CK? Okay. And then she says, Islet sits down, but I believe he's through Idaho. He was a Spillman file. He has a Spillman file, whoever I guess CK is. And then Brett Payne says, yep, I think so. Ashley says, Islets will be down till at 10 p.m. And then she says, disregard my poor grammar, haha. And Brett Payne says, you're all good. Ashley says, but I believe Spillman has his OLN in there for Idaho. Brett Payne then says, hey, can you run an RNQ on initials TC, year of birth 2000, Idaho and Washington? This is now on 12/8. She says, yes, just looking for vehicles. He says, yep, no record through Idaho. Trying Washington, no record either. Do you need the no record, those attached to anything? He says, no thanks, appreciate you checking. She says, no problem. Then a few hours later, he says, can you run a VIN for me? It's blank out of Nevada. Okay. And can you check blank Nevada? She says, yes, I sent you the returns. Got it. Apparently, it's the one car with no color listed. Ugh, frustrating immensely. And then she says, I don't know which one you're referring to, but that is pretty standard with California. I don't think they ever show color on returns. Nevada 2, nothing in the TLO. Good morning. Okay, so the next day now, 12/9. Good morning. Can you run an RNQ for any vehicles registered to JH? Now, this could be Hunter Johnson. I don't know his date of birth. I'm just saying these initials could be reversed. They could be last name and then first name, but since we can't see it, we don't really know now, do we? So we're just guessing. But whoever it is, the year of birth is 1991. There ain't no way that's Hunter Johnson because that's only 3 years after I was born in 88. So this is definitely not Hunter Johnson. I have no idea who this could be. So then Brett Payne says, good morning. And yes, sorry, got busy and forgot. And this is now WB answering him. And Brett Payne says, it's all right. And then WB says to Brett Payne, did you get it? I sent it. Brett Payne responds, yes, I did. Thank you. Then on 12/9, MN sent out a group message that says, is anyone available to relieve security on King for a few? And Corbin Smith says, yeah, I'll head that way. MN then says, thank you. Then it says on 12/9, it says in a group message, Morris's 2 o'clock is in the lobby. So Morris had an appointment with someone. And then Shane Gunderson said, it's 1:58. He's too early. We know Tim Smaldridge is, we know TS is Tim Smaldridge. And he responded to Shane Gunderson with, I guess, some sort of face. Oh, I see it now. So it's like this. Basically, like, you know what I mean? I'm a horrible artist with this thing. Let's see. Like this. Wow, that's horrible. Nose. Bam. A little alien. I think that's what he's trying to show. A little alien. I can get out of the screen. That's ridiculous. Okay. Yeah, just take this and tilt it. There you go. And then on 12/9, we're going down about 30 minutes. Yeah, about 30 minutes. WB says to Brett Payne, are you there? And that's it. I guess maybe Brett called the person. I don't know. Doesn't say anything. Okay. So then on 12/9, same day, different conversation, initials AH sends out a group message and it says, just an FYI, KR just called saying that he needs car 10 ready by Sunday so they can start working on it. I guess that's some sort of mechanical thing. And Shane Gunderson just says, okay. And Brett Payne to W says, yep. Aaron Morris responds with, great. And then I guess it's a new conversation now. It says 12/9 WB to Brett Payne. Someone just called on 911 that they saw a white Hyundai Elantra in Clarkston, but didn't know where it went. Do you want the plate? And then there's no response at all for 3 days. Okay. 12/12/22. Brett Payne to Ashley Tesdall. Good morning. Can you run ID blank for me? And she says, morning. The suspect car that comes back to a HF, year of birth 42. And it says the sus car. That's why I said suspect, because unless it says suspicious, I don't know what else it's supposed to say. So this might be a completely different case. I don't know. I don't know who HF is, but it's definitely like an older person because the year of birth is 42. Okay. So then Brett Payne says, perfect, thank you. And then asks, you guys doing all right? And then it drops down, I guess, again to a different conversation. 10 minutes later, this CV person sends out a group message and it says, oh, I see it now. I see what it does. So it's B Payne. Oh, God. Come back. This thing is tripping. C Green. Oh my God, let's turn that off. Oh my God, why is it doing that? Okay. C Green. Oh my God, it's like really crazy right now. It just like tripped out on me. And then like C Macy, like it's really stuck together, but now I can see exactly like how it's all separated out. Okay. I can see it now. So this says K called and would like someone to bring car 10 to the shop so it can be placed out of service. Thanks. And Casey Green says copy. MA then says car 5 is ready to go back into service. Corbin Smith says copy. This is all in 12/12. 178 and I will grab it. So they just talk to each other or identify each other in messages with their ID number. And then let's see, about an hour later, Ashley Tesdall says to Brett Payne, totally forgot to push send. We're doing good. He says, LOL, that's okay. This most likely means good to hear. And then she says, yeah. And then the next day, Brett Payne sends her a message and says, good morning. Can you run ID blank? And she says, morning will do. And she says, expired gray 2015 expired gray, 2015 Ram 1500 to a TM year of birth 91 out of Coeur d'Alene. Then Tyson Barrett comes in on 12/13 with a group message that says, was there an officer speaking with a female on the phone and it just got disconnected? And John Rosinski said it was Morris and it was a male. Tyson Barrett says, thanks. I sent him phone number via text. Aaron Morris said, I'm talking to a male who I was prior disconnected with. I wonder who this is. So on 12/13, Brett Payne says to a whoops. And then there's something else, but there's no previous conversation to say, like, what started this conversation? Whoops, what? And then he just says, sorry. And then Ashley responds, BT, year of birth 72, and KT, year of birth 99, out of Post Falls in 2013 suspect vehicle. So when they say sus vehicle, it must just mean like it looks like the bolo that was sent out on 11/27 is why they're using that. Okay. He says, perfect, thanks. She says, you're welcome. And then Brett Payne to WB. then says, howdy, can you run blank for me, Idaho? He says to Brett, hi, sorry, I'm in office and don't have an ORI, so I can't run anything. Brett Payne then says, no worries, we found it, thanks. Brett Payne then says to E, good morning, can you run Oregon? Now they're back to Oregon again. They're back to Oregon again. Can you run Oregon blank? E says, sure thing. Brett Payne to E says, got it. Can you run blank as well? Idaho. Okie doke. There's no return for that one. Should it have a U on the end? And he says, maybe. I wonder how he would be able to know that. So then he says, I sent you the return I got with the U added to the end. Brett Payne says, awesome, thanks. And then he says, hey, do you know anyone on scene at the shooting location in Pullman? Now we have entered Kopaka territory. This is 12:15. This is the day that Kohberger is getting pulled over twice in Indiana with his father in the car. And Brent Kopaka's situation is now concluded. As far as I'm understanding from time slots, everything happened pretty much like in the nighttime into the early morning is how I remember the news footage. So then E says to Brett Payne, kind of. And Brett Payne says, can you give me a watch commander's number? Hang on, I'm on 911 and then I'll get it. He says, okay, no worries. E then says to Brett Payne, for patrol OIC, that is going to be a DA person initials. And he says, thanks. So Brett Payne was curious about the shooting situation with Brent Kopaka enough to want to contact who? The person in charge? Watch commander. Yeah. Okay, so then on the same day, 12:15, RW sends a group message, and it says, disabled vehicle near Banner Bank on South Jackson. Vehicle broke down. ISP took care of it, and tow will be there around 1800. SS must be the initials of the person. Green Chevy Suburban blank. They just wanted to give you all a heads up. Why if what? I guess because it broke down near Banner Bank in town. They just needed to know about it, but I don't know what it has anything to do with anything, honestly. Warner says, cool. Casey Green says, thank you. So then on 12:16, Brett Payne sends a message to E, and he says, hey, can you run an R&Q for initials LK? Year of birth, 1978. E says, okie doke. Are you looking for Idaho? And are you sure in the spelling of her name? So this is a female. This is a female. And Brett Payne says, yes, please. E says, I'm not finding any vehicles for an LK through Idaho. And Brett Payne says, cool, thanks. So then E says to Payne, okay, so there are no LKs in Idaho or in Washington. Then says, but I found an LK in Washington. It must be a different spelling. She doesn't have any vehicles. Then says, I dug a little deeper. There is no one in Idaho with the last name of K who has any vehicles. So I'm going to assume it's probably spelled wrong. And then Brett Payne says, LOL, it's spelled like this. It must be It must be a name that you can easily misspell. Must not be all that common. Must not be all that common. Then E says, I sent you the return for everyone in Idaho whose last name is this last name. I wonder, I mean, like, it's a K name. Who the hell name could this possibly be? It's a chick. And has vehicles. There's still no L. So whoever the chick is, the first name is, they're still not showing up a match to that last name. Brett Payne says, awesome, thank you so much. And then he says, I don't actually think that is everyone in Idaho. I was double checking my work and searched for someone whose name is this. And I got a return that's not on the one I sent you. I was super wrong. Haha. There are more this last name than I thought. Brett Payne says, LOL. And then E says, still no L or L though. So the first name of the chick that they're looking for, they're still not finding it. I am so sure about that. And then Brett says to them, blank, can you run that? And he says, yes, sir. Can you send me the return for blank? Idaho, sure thing. Can you run Idaho? Code this one. And he says, okie doke. It's been like a few minutes in between these ones. And then Brett Payne says, and this one, and sends another one to run. And then E says, I sent you the second one and I did not get a return on the first one. Brett says, copy, thank you. And E says, no problemo. 3 days go by. We are now on the notorious doomsday date, 12/19/22. Brett Payne at 10:11:35 in the morning sends a message to Ashley Tesdall and says, can you run Washington this? Yo, comes back to a 2014 model of suspect vehicle to a CR out of Pullman. So we are on the date, and at 10 o'clock in the morning, he's still not running Bryan Kohberger's information. That's interesting. Brett Payne then says, perfect, thank you, and then says, at almost 3 p.m., can I ask another favor? And then Ashley says, go for it before I log off. You'll have to ask C. I am heading to Jacob's pinning. Jacob Tisdall got a pin. Brett Payne says, no worries. See you there. So on 12/19, when you get a call with the suspect's name, you still take time off to go to a celebration. Okay. Brett Payne then says to somebody named C, can you run an RNQ for any vehicles registered to an ER or an AR? So we are, again, have him searching for another vehicle on 12/19 that is still not Bryan Kohberger's information. Brett Payne says, Idaho. CC then says, copy. I didn't get any vehicles for E, but I'm checking Washington too, just in case. Nothing out of Washington for either. I sent over the one vehicle I got back for A. Did you need it attached to anything? Brett Payne says, copy, thanks. CC says, no problem. Now we have entered 12/20. This is supposed to be the day that they get together in a team meeting and go over the damn IGG tree information with the FBI. This is a group message from MA that just says, KA is in the lobby. And Jay Waters says, on my way. CM says, thanks, Jay. Then CM says, K from the shop wanted to see if someone could come do a VIN check on the 2 new cars. Jay Waters says, sure. CM says, thank you. Now, this is where we finally see Brett Payne contacting the Pullman Police Department with what should now be Bryan Christopher Kohberger's name. He sends a message to Ashley Tesdall that says, can you give me the cell number of DT from Pullman Police Department? Then he steps back and says, WSU PD. Sorry. Brett Payne then sends a message to this person and says, hey, this is Detective Payne from MPD. Are you online? AT, Ashley Tesdall, sends a message to Brett Payne that says 321T, D's work, this, personal, this. So this is the guy's name, his work phone, and his personal cell phone. And then DT says to Payne, yes. So he's communicating with him in the law enforcement chat that can connect the two of them. And he's also getting the cell phone numbers. Brett Payne says, just called your work cell. Can you call me? Brett Payne then gives this person his phone number. DT then says to Brett Payne, oh, I froze again. Okay, there it goes. DT then says to Brett Payne, copy, I will call in a couple of minutes. Brett Payne to DC says, thanks. Then Brett P to D says, were you riding with CW that night by chance? Now, There's only 5 minutes in between these two messages. So it's very possible they had a very, very brief conversation. And now, as soon as the conversation is over with, Brett Payne is now sending messages, asking him questions. I can only assume that that night means on 11/13/22, or it could mean 11/29 when they would have found out by now from Jenkins being contacted by Chief Fry on his personal cell phone about Bryan's information. They would have known by now at this point that there was a hit, because Jenkins says that he went back and took a look at the system and did see that they did look up Bryan Kohberger's information in the computer, but that because, again, the year that he had of his car did not match the internal BOLO that was received in their office, sent to them directly and drafted and written by Brett Payne 2 days prior to that on 11/27, it did not match. So because it was not a direct match, they never, ever turned it in. So this could be 11/29 or it could be 11/13. We don't know. DT then says to Brett Payne, I was not, but he was driving around in his vehicle looking for a possible suspect at the same time. Okay, so then this sort of gives you the clue that it's probably the 11/29 date, because again, they didn't know anything about that until 12/20. Then Brett Payne says to DT, awesome, he ran another plate at the same location, but it was a Washington plate. DT then says to Brett Payne, copy. Also, the Pennsylvania plate I ran was not the one I saw at the tennis courts on North Fairway. The one I saw at the tennis courts was a California plate. So see, it wasn't just Kohberger's car that they wrote down the license plate for on the 29th. It was also several other vehicles that night that matched what they claimed that they were looking for. Brett Payne then says to DT, cool, any memory of the Pennsylvania one? Brett Payne to DT then says, Geobase looks like Northeast Valley Road Apartments, which we know to be the Steptoe Apartments. DT then says to Brett Payne, I'm going to pull up the parking system right now. I think I ran that from a vehicle I found in our parking system, trying to see if it returned to a local address. I was probably parked in front of RPD at the time. That might be the one at the Steptoe Village Apartments. Brett Payne then says, that's what Maps is showing me. DT says to Brett Payne, yeah, that sounds right. It also has an active parking permit for that lot. The lot at his residence? Yeah, the parking lot at Steptoe Village Apartments. His apartment is right here. I believe it was parked in the top large parking lot located off of Brandy Way. Would you like the male's name that's on the parking account? I believe it's the same as the RO of the vehicle. Brett Payne then says, I just got it. Thanks, man. You've been a huge help. Then he says, no problem. Any interest in a 2013 white Honda Civic? And Brett Payne says, no, not at the moment. DT then says to Brett Payne, copy. My sergeant was just asking. Please let me know if you need anything else. I'm on until 2. He says, awesome. Thanks a ton. No problem. So that what we just read right here would have been what I would consider the very first conversation that Brett Payne would have had with WSU PD regarding anything that was happening in way of 11/29. Very first conversation Brett Payne was having with them. I think this is the last page, because the rest of the two or three pages is like the redaction logs. So then on 12/20, DT says to Brett Payne, how far after this? 17:21:55. So like 30 minutes later. Sorry to bother you. I believe I saw the same vehicle Curtis Whitman ran. See, we've heard that name before, and that's obviously the CW that was being talked to up there. So I don't know why they acted stupid about it. Sorry to bother you. I believe I saw the same vehicle Curtis Whitman ran. blank Washington at Steptoe and not the PA one. I checked both of our radio log histories, and I remember meeting up with him in the Steptoe lot right after he saw the blank Washington plates. And he told me he ran that one as we rode sided in the lot. I ran the PA one after checking parking system while parked in front of the vehicle bays at WSU PD right before I began to drive around to look for possible vehicles. And then Brett Payne says, awesome, thanks, no problem. Then on 12/21, AH sends out a group message that it says, A, with Probation and Youth Services, just called to say that MT is in their lobby right now, and she knew that we were wanting to speak to him. She said they were going to try and keep him there for a bit if someone is available. A minor, Probation and Youth Services, a minor on probation. Why do we need to read messages about a minor on probation showing up? Do we need to go pull reports from 12/21? That's a little confusing. Then Corbin Smith is the one that says, okay, we'll try to catch up with him. And then this random ass person, a complete week later, named Jason Summers, sends Brett Payne a real non-professional hey. And that's how they end this document. That's how they end this document. So yeah, this is definitely something I'm going to sit down with and take a look at everything that I highlighted in here and everything that we seem to have had some questions about. I'm not going to print it. I'm just going to save as, because I have all these highlights. There is some interesting information again, and I will say this does seem to have been the initial conversation between Brett Payne and Pullman PD, like regarding what they actually did, which was, we know nothing. Highlighted from live. Okay. But we do now know that there's a parking permit. So is that a sticker? Is that something that's supposed to always be on the car and noticeable? Was his sticker missing? Because I was looking for something like that. I was hoping that we would see some sort of insignia or something like that. Because if it's some sort of sticker and it would have been like removed, and then they would have had, him maybe going in and trying to get like a replacement parking permit sticker for some reason, like that would have been interesting. But we haven't heard anything about how the stickers look. If it had a sticker, we're just now hearing about the parking permit situation. So yeah, that was pretty interesting. Now tomorrow, I'm gonna end up doing something probably different than what I originally was, because we were supposed to do Cyray's last half of the interview tonight, and we did not. I have been really wanting for a long time to start like a Way Back Wednesday thing where we go over older information, but I think I'm going to just put it off. There's so much new stuff that we are still, to this day, over a year freaking later, needing to go over. There's still interviews that Connor posted. There's still some other documents, those other police reports that Connor had posted from Coeur d'Alene regarding either Maddie, Jack, or Kaylee that he put out there that I still haven't got the chance to read all through. Plus, we have these expert reports that we still need to go through, important ass expert reports. So we're going to put that off, and tomorrow is when we're probably going to maybe we should do like Tom Slovinsky's report and then do Cyray's remaining half of the review after. Because I can go live around like 3:15-ish tomorrow at the earliest. And I feel like if we go through Slovinsky's report and just read it like we normally do, just like I just straight up read the damn thing, then that should maybe be like a 2-hour live. Maybe 2-hour live or so. And then we can come back at around like 8:45, 9:15 and do the rest of Cyray's interview review. Now, Thursday is the day that the Sundance 2-episode series thing releases. I don't know what time it's going to release. I don't know if it's going to be available come midnight and we can just do it early. I'm going to put a poll up because I want whoever wants to be here to watch it yourself on your own screen, but be in here with us as we also are watching it at the same time. I want you guys to be able to be in here, and I don't want to do it earlier in the day, even though that's my day where I'm off and I can do lives whenever, if the majority of you guys are going to be at work. So I'm going to put a poll up starting tomorrow to see what time would be the best for everyone. And that is just going to be around about like when we end up doing it. Now there's 2 episodes as far as I can tell so far. So we can either separate it or we can just get them done. We can either separate it or get them done. I said at first I wanted to do like maybe like a 5-minute interval thing, like play a little 5-minute in the middle in between episodes, but depending on, it just really depends on what time. If we do it later on in the evening, then that is probably how it'll go. But if we end up doing a little bit earlier, then we might do episode 1 and then take like an hour break, or like we're just off the computer, take like an hour break and then come back and do the second one. We'll see. It just really all depends on the time. Because if we go later, then I'll do something else. We'll go live over interviews and reports and shit in the morning, and then we'll watch the episodes later on at night, like in the evening in our pajamas, you know, like we'll just do something like that. We'll figure that out. But for sure tomorrow, I do want to go live and go over Tom Sovinsky's report, because that's who brought Cyray into this entire thing, because he had his own issues with what was going on. And then we will do the second half of Cyray's review, unless something else comes out. But like I said, this was new information. We've been talking about Cyray till we're blue in the face since that damn interview came out, driving ourselves crazy. But we're going to finish going over it tomorrow, and we still have the book to read. So it's not like we're done with Cyray. We're just taking him now and in stride because he's annoying as shit. Ugh, annoying. It's freaking annoying. Oh my god. All right, you guys. Yeah, that's some of the older, like the stuff that I want to end up coming back in and rewatching is like the Q&A questionnaire at the very end, like the Q&A after the sentencing, and the interviews that they did whenever they first came out and said some things, especially the Dateline one, because there was interviews that were done about the Dateline leak, and there were some things that they already admitted were false information, and then they admitted the things that were real information. But now they won't answer anything. And the only thing I can really find that still has those answers is an article, because they like basically cut it out of the interviews. Yeah, I learned once I was able to actually like screen record, because for the longest when I first started this channel, that's not how I did it. I didn't know how to go live. I didn't know how to screen record. I was talking to the camera and I would like insert in the document. It wasn't live rolling, live scrolling. That's not how I could do it. So there's a lot of stuff I didn't have recorded that I really regret not having now, because I know as a creator, whoever has access to those YouTube channels, be it somebody like me or someone mainstream, that little edit button means you can go in and you can take shit out of it. So anything that was said that maybe they didn't like that it came out, they probably just went in there and clipped that damn thing. And now the piece is, you know, almost gone. I know there's some people that grabbed onto the original copies, but there's not very many copies of the original shit all out there. So I can only do what I can at this point, but I know that once this one slows down enough and we start looking at the next like really big case to look at, I'm definitely going to grab stuff from the very beginning if it's an active case. We still have 550 people in here. Let me ask y'all a question real quick. I'm going to ask y'all a question. Are y'all ready? Just real quick, without even thinking, I'm going to say a name. And just drop in the chat, innocent or guilty, and I'm going to let it run for like a good minute. And then I'm going to play something that has my attention. So are you ready? I've mentioned this name in passing. And I've been told to be careful, but I'm not careful. So are you guys ready? When I say this name, type innocent or guilty, whichever one you instantly think. 1, 2, 3. Scott Peterson. Go. I'm going to pull up this clip that I want to play you because it got my attention today, guys. It got my attention today. Now, I think Scott Peterson is a low-life loser and piece of shit cheater that needs his ass beat. Okay. He is not a good man. He is a piece of shit. The biggest piece of shit that you possibly could be. Alrighty. But when I tell you that I've had issues with his case since I first came across it and actually read into the details, that's not an exaggeration. I've had a lot of issues with his case. We know that tunnel vision is a huge problem, and I know that the cops hated him, especially after they found out about Amber Fry, and tunnel vision is a son of a bitch, okay? There's a lot of information that really bothers me about Laci Peterson's case. One thing very particular today that I heard should piss everyone off, because this is one of the main reasons why I have issues with the case, and it has to do with that damn boat. Now, I've known for years, okay? I have known for years that Laci most likely knew about that damn boat. I've watched so many documentaries on this case trying to see if I've missed anything, trying to figure out what's going on. And when I heard why the boat was not actually mentioned originally today, listening to a clip, I am pretty pissed. And if you guys give a shit at all, which I know you do, about withheld evidence, withheld exculpatory evidence personally being omitted by police, like we just are talking about in this case, then this should definitely get your attention. I'm going to pull this up. Let me see if this is the right one right here. Yeah. Let me pull up just only to play you what was said about the boat. And again, y'all know who I am, okay? Y'all know how I look at cases. Me talking about a different case should not take away from anybody the kind of person I am that brought you and made you stay here on this channel, okay? So keep all of that in mind, like a lot of people sometimes don't when I'm mentioning this, all right? Let me pull this up right here where he talks about the damn boat. Okay. This boat is extremely important for many reasons. Not only is there an eyewitness testimony that Laci not only knew about the boat, but this person saw her in the boat, but they also have proof from subpoenaing original reports after edited and redacted ones were submitted to the court. Yes, were submitted to the court that the lead detective knew that the person at the storage area where the boat was being held had seen Laci on the boat, had seen Laci with the boat. And this is not the only big thing. There are so many people that say they saw her walking the dog. The dog situation in itself, how the dog was found, everything with that is so shady. And I'm not against him maybe hiring somebody to get rid of her, okay? But when I say I don't think Scott Peterson did this himself, when you look at his face, is that really what you see? I want you to take a step back from the real story here, okay? Take a step back from everything you've already said. Does he look like he even has the cojones? Like, there's a difference between somebody having, like, cold eyes or looking like a killer when you look at him. Scott looks like a coward. I have never looked at Scott Peterson and been like, oh, yeah, he's definitely one of them. Nah, hell nah. Scott Peterson looks like a little bitch. Okay. I don't think that he physically did this. I just don't. Listen to this, okay? Because there is some new evidence that's come out. I'd like to talk about it, but I really want you guys to listen to what's being said here, okay? Just listen to what's being said.
That brings us to the testing of the boat and the theories surrounding the boat and whether or not Laci knew about it. And what's in the documentary is the notes. Right?
Yeah, when we go through this, look, when I tell you about 2 years ago, I recorded an 1.5-hour-ish long video on this case, and then I never edited it down and released it. When I tell you I put some research into this case, it's not even a joke. When we do talk about this, I don't give a shit about Mark Garagos. We're going to go off of like factual stuff, court stuff like that. Just take a listen.
Right. And the scribblings, she probably knew, according to that documentary. What are your thoughts on that?
I'll never forget cross-examining a detective named Rocchini.
Yeah, that guy.
He was one of the co-lead detectives. I noticed I had put up on the screen a report. Now, mind you, going into this trial, at the beginning of this trial, mitochondrial DNA, that is the DNA that tests basically the maternal lineage. It was not admissible in California. We did a extensive hearing because before you can get DNA admissible, you have to do a hearing if there's no Court of Appeals decision. That's the law. We did a long hearing, flew in federal DOJ personnel.
It's not just his
FBI
looks,
personnel,
it's his eyes.
did
It's me reading his
hearing
soul.
on it, and the judge ultimately ruled that the mitochondrial DNA could come in. Why do I talk about that? Because there was a hair found in the boat.
Mm-hmm.
The mitochondrial DNA testing, I mean, it shows you how long we've come, Matt, that we're talking about mitochondrial DNA. That's something now that's kind of a throwaway. It's just an assumption. But back then, it was not admissible.
Pretty.
But that hair was linked to Lacey's maternal lineage by the DNA.
Mm-hmm.
And they wanted to get that hair evidence that it was Lacey's from the boat, because their working theory was she'd never seen the boat. She didn't know about the boat.
Mm-hmm.
The only way her hair would get in the boat is that Scott had killed her somewhere. We don't know where, because they never came up with any explanation for that. Trundled her there to the warehouse and put her in the boat. And that's why he went out.
I'm not sure of the time.
Cross-examination during the trial. Detective Brocchini, I put up his report. He had whited out an area.
Listen.
We demanded to see the original. Do you know what he had whited out?
Listen to
that
this
he
shit.
interviewed a woman at that place, that what you just saw in that kind of, it was a warehouse area, who had come into the Scott's warehouse and had seen Lacey playing in the boat and doing like this right before she disappeared. And this guy, the lead detective in a special circumstance death penalty case, had taken it upon himself to excise that out of the report so we would never see it.
The lead detective that had an eyewitness that saw Lacey Peterson not only at the location that the boat was being stored, but in the boat, like standing up in the boat, playing around in the damn boat, because that's what she was. She was a playful person playing around in the boat. The lead detective interviewed that person and said, we're just going to go ahead and erase all of that. How can you hear that? That's just one. There's so much shit in this case. I'm telling you now, if the damn police would have never told the entire freaking planet where Scott's dumb ass was that day, or at least where he said he was that day, which we know there's like permits and tickets and shit for him going that way. But if they would have never told the world where he was, I can promise you Lacey and Connor either would have never been found, or they definitely would not have been found where they were found. That was planted by whoever was really responsible, because the stupid ass cops told everybody Scott's whereabouts at the time that Lacey was murdered. You don't do that. But they had tunnel vision for him because he's sarcastic and a smart ass, and turns out he was cheating on his pregnant wife. What a piece of shit. Damn straight, what a piece of shit. But I've never thought that he had it in him. He doesn't look like he has the balls to do it. It's just that simple. And again, that's just my opinion. He doesn't look like he has the balls to do it. That was my opinion first looking at him. Going into everything, I was like, damn, I wonder if he hired somebody to do all of this. And I'm still up for that. I am still up for him hiring somebody to come in and do something to Lacey. Very still possible. But him doing that with his own hands at the time, the timing. The timing is the craziest part. The timing is the craziest part because of the situation with the dog, the people that saw Lacey with the dog afterwards. There's like a dozen people, even one very specifically that didn't technically see her, but there's a mailman that says that he was there every single day, walked every single day, and it didn't matter that he'd been there every single day. Their dog constantly barked at him. And the one time, just that day that he walked by to deliver the mail, no barking. The dog wasn't there. Which pointed to Lacey was with the dog on a walk and not home at the time. Because when Scott Peterson got home that day, the dog was found outside, like in the backyard. I think the leash was still attached to the dog. The timing doesn't add up, and I just don't think he's got the balls. The evidence don't point to it. That's the biggest part. Like, that was my opinion, and then the evidence didn't make any damn sense. And what really was annoying to me is that they tried to say that basically the burglars who burgled the house in the neighborhood, oh, let's just trust them, and they say that it was after the crime of Lacey going missing and not before, in order to cause her going missing. So you want me to believe that these dumb shits that were seen by a neighbor taking stuff out of the Medina house, putting it on the lawn and having issues with their dumb asses, loading it up into their van, those dumb shits go and rob the house as national news networks are lining up around the block with cameras right there? And in what universe is that how that works? No, I'm sorry. See, and that's another thing. There were a bunch of women in that area that were pregnant that were going missing, and they were all around the same pregnancy, 8-9 months, somewhere around there. So I would really, really like to actually dig into the factual evidence. That's the thing right there. I would really like to dig into the factual evidence of this case, because I don't believe the story. I'm sorry. I just don't. I don't believe the story. The timing doesn't work for me. There's too many things. And this that I showed you is just one. How are you going to have a lead detective go and have a face-to-face eyewitness interview with someone who's got no skin in the game, no reason to lie, and say, well, I've seen her here. I've seen her in the boat. I've seen her with him in the boat. Like, what are you talking about? Yes, she knew about the boat. And instead of telling the cops when he gets back, hey, man, we might need to rethink this boat thing about how Lacey didn't know about the boat, because now we have someone at the storage unit that's claiming to have seen her. And we can't just discredit that, because that's pretty big. The boat was only purchased, I don't even know. I can't remember the timeline for the boat, but it was like hella soon before all this shit happened. Like days to maybe like a week and a half, 2 weeks max. That boat was purchased right before the shit went stupid. But it was a gift for her father. It was a surprise grandfather's gift for the baby that was coming, for Connor. That's what the boat was for. And then if you listen to this one further, and if I know people don't like Garagos or whatever the frick is Garagos, yeah, I don't like his ass either. I hate the fact that he deals with TMZ all the time, because he's so freaking annoying. Okay, so freaking annoying. But if you want to listen to this, listen to it, and just listen to the rest of it. I mean, most of you guys probably know they tried to recreate him throwing Lacey over the boat with a dummy that was proportionate to her size, being pregnant, and every single time, both the state and the defense tried to have that recreated, the boat capsized. Every single time. So then consider what would have happened with the dummy and the anchors tied to the body. There's no way. The boat was not physically the hole was not the right shape. The hole was not deep enough. It wasn't capable of somebody tossing a body the size and weight of Lacey overboard without it flipping over and dumping everybody into the water. And Scott was dry. Scott had stinky, fishy clothes, but no one says anything that saw him when he was coming out. No one said he was wet. His shoes weren't soaking wet. The boat didn't have a bunch of water in it like it had been turned over. None of that. None of that stuff. None of that stuff. Yeah, I would like to maybe, do we know if the original stuff is out there to watch? I know, like in my head, I'm seeing him in that damn suit. But yeah, I'd really like to look at just like the actual data. Like, I don't care about the rumory stuff, except for the facts that if, you know, the cops wouldn't have been spreading people's business on press conferences, then maybe things would be a little bit different. Yeah, but there were people that saw him coming out of the water, Rochelle. There's people that saw him coming out and like, because he was apparently having trouble getting the boat back up on the boat trailer, and people saw him and he was dry. And people also saw him like getting there. And so they didn't see anything that seemed to be tied up or wrapped up in a tarp or anything crazy like that at all. At all. So yeah, I think he's a piece of shit. We know that Amber Fry, you know, wasn't responsible for anything and was taken completely just off guard and heartbroken by the shit with freaking Scott. I'll never think she had anything to do with anything. I know some people, I know it's a small group of people from what I understand, think that she might have some sort of involvement in something. See, in the Chris Watts case, you can bet your ass Home Chick probably had something to do with a little bit of something there. But in this situation, I don't think Amber Fry had anything to do with anything. She seemed to be really open, willing to be completely freaking humiliated in front of live TV about being the other woman and how she found out, and having her entire life just popped open in front of everybody about how she had basically given up. Then here comes Scott and blah, 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 blah. And it's just also disgusting. I mean, it makes you really sick to your stomach, the shit that he was telling her. The shit that he was telling her. Oh my God. But a cheating piece of shit does not equal a murderer. My God. So I do want to go over it. I do want to go over the information. I really, really do. It's just a lot. And I don't care. I don't care how messy it gets, because the truth is the truth, and that's all that matters. And I'm really interested in the truth here, especially given some of the other things that we've heard. Plus this. Plus this. Like I said, I'd known about the encounter. I didn't know that he had whited it out of the report and got rid of it. And then they asked for the original report, and they happened to have had it still at the police department to have been submitted to the court. I want that report. I really, 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 really want that report. Now, there's also a channel. I don't remember the name of them right now, but I'll share it when we get closer to talking about this later on. They've done like major videos on this case. I mean, like, damn. Like, it's an entire series, and it's just like hours and hours and hours and hours and hours of information. It's pretty good, too. You just really have to have time to listen to it, because, damn, it's a lot of info. There's also, see, the new one that just came out about some stuff is the reason why people are talking about it now. And if you guys want, I actually, when I was going in and recording the stuff from CrimeCon for the Goncalveses, I also clipped where this stuff was talked about at CrimeCon from the CrimeCon website. So once we slow down a little bit, I'll clip that down. And then we'll go over that live too, because they talk about a lot of the courtroom evidence and stuff in this CrimeCon panel. So that might be something good to look at. Yeah, there's also a website. There's a website that his family put together, or his sister put together. I used to have it bookmarked. Do I still have it bookmarked? Does it still have a bookmark? We know what he told her. Cheaters lie. I mean, that doesn't mean anything. And again, if the cops would never have told the world that that's where he was fishing, she wouldn't have been found there. So where is it freaking normal for the cops to come out and tell the world where the husband was when a wife goes missing? That's not normal. You don't do that. If the world didn't know that, that's probably not what would have happened. Probably not what would have happened. So we're going to take a look. We're going to go over the evidence stuff. I don't know where the new documentary is. Let's see. New Scott Peterson. Because maybe we can do the same thing. We can do like a watch along on A&E. Okay, so it came out like a week and a half or so ago. Scott Peterson, 4-hour, 2-part documentary that premiered July 16th and 17th. 2026 on A&E. Legal analysis, new evidence with never before heard witness accounts, defense perspective, scientific reexamination, public and legal context. Yeah, maybe we'll do a watch along with it while they still have it, and we'll just watch it. Because I'd like to see what it says. So we'll watch that together like we always do when stuff comes out, and then compare it to the stuff that we hear in court, because we're going to just handle this the same way that we handle all the other cases that we talk about. We watch what comes out, we talk about what they have to say, and then we say what's wrong. We say when they're lying and when we can prove that they're full of shit. So maybe in like 2 weeks or so, if it stays up there, we'll watch it. I don't know who all has A&E, but you know, if you're here just to hear me run my mouth about it, that'll be fine too. That's how we normally do things. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and get off of here. I just wanted to see what you guys' opinion is. I'll probably go ahead and clip that and post it just like up until like the boat thing, just so I can get like a more generalized channel opinion about what people think about it. But I think honestly, regardless, I'm going to talk about it. I just really want to see what people's thoughts are. Because it's really hard for people to differentiate between being a murderer and a cheater, not realizing how different it is. Just because someone's a piece of shit doesn't mean they instantly are capable of doing the worst things ever. I think he's a weasel. And again, I think if he is responsible, I don't think he did it with his own hands. I think the timing doesn't work. And I don't think he's got the balls. I really just don't. Somebody either made a penny or somebody else is responsible, and he's got the worst luck ever for being a loser. Loser. Karma sucks. Damn, karma sucks. And you know what? This could honestly be his karma for telling Amber Frey his wife is dead. If I told y'all a story about karma, y'all would probably cry your eyes out. So I'll just keep that to myself. My kids know that story, but I'll keep that to myself. This could easily be karma for him, even saying what he said and doing what he did, and then turns out somebody else actually did it, and he's just been suffering this whole time because he's a piece of shit. I'm fine with that, but I just want to know the truth. Like, I'm okay with him being in prison for the past 20-something years if he's a cheater. Like, I don't have no qualms with that. Sorry. But I still want to make sure, like, there's no one else out there that needs to be punished, because that's important. So we're going to look at it. We're going to look at it. So I'm going to go ahead and get off of here. Thank you so much for coming in here with me tonight and going through these. Thank you, Connor, for grabbing those. Definitely some interesting information. I'll take some time to do a little bit of a breakdown with them so that I can maybe file a couple of FOIAs to get a couple of different reports on things that were mentioned, but we'll see. We will see. Yeah, this is true too. This is true too. It sure is. But you guys have a great night. I will see you at some point tomorrow. Try to get some sleep. Try to get some sleep. And if you have not already celebrated Taco Tuesday, you've got 30 minutes. You better get to it. See y'all.